Welcome back to the Challenger Podcast. I'm Dave Glaser in Fort Collins, Colorado. Last week, we talked about the best fitness plans for each Enneagram type so that they actually stick. And this week, I want to expand on the topic of choosing the best nutrition plan for each Enneagram type so weight loss actually sticks long term. Welcome back. I wanted to introduce this topic through the lens of the Enneagram because weight loss isn't about willpower. It's about decision fatigue, emotional regulation, identity, and consistency. If you've ever said, I know what to eat, I just don't do it, or this plan works for a month and then I fall off, or I feel great until life happens, or XYZ happens and then I get distracted or I get off of the track. That's not a discipline issue. That's a personality mismatch between the program that you're choosing to adhere to and what actually fits your personality type. So let's break down which nutrition approaches actually work best for each Enneagram type, not in theory, but in practical application in real life. Let's start out with type 1, the reformer. The best nutrition style suited for this person is something that's structured, rule-based, with clear and defined frameworks. Type 1s lose weight best when the rules are clear. The things that work best for the type 1 are macro tracking in an app or pen and paper, clean eating templates like 80-20 splits done intentionally. That's where 80% of the time you're 100% committed to your goals and 20% of the time you get to live life as you see fit. They also benefit from whole food focused plans and scheduled meals throughout the day, work day, week, etc. Here's why it works though. Clear standards reduce the mental chaos. And there is something that I want you to be conscious of as far as a risk goes. And this could be a big risk for type 1s. It's an all or nothing thinking leading to guilt spirals. You know, that inner critic that shows up, or the self-criticism that's like, you're not good enough because you didn't stick to it or you didn't do it perfectly. But the key reframe that I want you to bring into this conversation is one imperfect meal does not erase progress. Is that something that you could adhere to? Does that help you reset the framework? Next, let's go on to the helper, the type 2 on the Enneagram. The best nutrition style for the helper is something that's relationship supported and externally accountable with somebody like a coach. 2s oftentimes struggle when they prioritize everyone else's needs over their own. And then they just end up snacking or grazing or eating the leftovers or taking what's left. On the other hand, what works best for type 2s is having an accountability partner like a coach or a group, meal prepping for others and yourself, coach-led plans that have accountability, and shared nutrition goals with family, which means that you actually have to communicate what you need. Here's why that works. You show up better when others are involved, even in fitness and nutrition programs. The big risk, however, is that you're eating everyone's leftovers. Emotional eating to soothe others is something to be very mindful of. Does that resonate? And if so, here's your key reframe. Nourishing yourself helps you show up better for everyone else. Let's move on to the type 3, the achiever. Hopefully that resonated to the type 2. If you are one, or if you love a type 2, know a type 2, work with a type 2, etc. Let's move on to the achiever though, the type 3. The best nutrition style is results-driven, metric-based. 3s want proof their effort is working. This works best when macro tracking or having progress dashboards. You could do before and after measurements, which can oftentimes be confronting for the 3, but very helpful. And then clear timelines. Set a goal and a reasonable time frame. SMART goals were something that I introduced to my clients early on: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So type 3s work best upon clear timelines, which is why marathon prep works great for them, or a fitness competition prep timeline works for them. Here's why it works for type 3s. Feedback fuels motivation. And also there's a touch of discipline in there too. Feedback fuels motivation and discipline. The big risk, however, though, is over-restriction, diet obsession, and that leads to burnout. And the key reframe for the type 3 is something that I want you to focus on here is sustainable progress beats fast wins. You don't have to be the best at your nutrition program to see results. Let's move on to the type 4, the individualist. The best nutrition style that works for them is something that's flexible, emotionally aware, and expressive. Rigid plans backfire for fours. Fours work best when they have intuitive eating with structure, like eating to 80% full of meals that you prepare yourself, that you enjoy preparing, that are actually fun to do, fun to eat. They're very colorful. But I want you to focus on mindful eating practices. Also, food journaling tied to emotions. After you eat dinner, what did you experience? Was it a good experience? What did you experience when you were mindfully eating? At 80% full, what did you feel? Restricted, free? Did you feel emotionally full? And then finally, sticking to creative seasonal meals are a great strategy for type 4s to adhere to a program. This is why it works. 4s need meaning, not control. So if an 8, like myself, is their coach and I'm not in a good place mentally or emotionally, I might put a lot of pressure on 4s to adhere 100% to that program. That's going to backfire from a coach to a client. The big risk for 4s, though, is eating based on mood alone. Do you have an emotion that shows up for you at work and then you go to the snack drawer? Or do you have something going on in your family, like somebody just passed away and you're still grieving? What does food consumption and your relationship to food look like when you're going through grief? And then the key reframe for type 4s is structure doesn't erase authenticity, it actually supports it. When you bring a little bit of structure into your nutrition program or your nutrition lifestyle, you are free to be more of yourself outside of that. Let's move on to the investigator, type 5 on the Enneagram. The best nutrition style for this type is something that's minimalist, efficient, and logic-based. You as a 5 want fewer decisions, not more. And what works best is repetitive meal templates that you meal prep every Sunday, or protein forward plans because you feel fuller faster. It just makes sense. Time restricted eating, meaning like if you don't finish your plate in 15 minutes, you leave what's left over. Or intermittent fasting, where you only eat between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. And then you want to stick to simple grocery lists here. Proteins, healthy fats, vegetables over complex carbohydrates. And here's why it works, because it reduces your cognitive load. You don't have to overanalyze or think about it. You also don't have to know every single ingredient in your meals because there's only 4 ingredients. And that's what a whole food, nutrient-dense meal plan would look like for a 5. Here's the big risk, however. If you're over-optimizing and under-eating, if you're under-fueling for your performance goals, whether that's mental performance or physical performance, you have an opportunity to look at the risks you're taking if you happen to under-eat. Here's the key reframe for the type 5, though. Fuel is not a distraction. It's an enabler, or I like to call it an empowerment strategy. It's very, very simple to stick to something that is structured and repeatable for the type. Type 6, the loyalist, and the nutrition style that fits them best is something that's safe, consistent, and guided. They work very well under a coaching program. 6s succeed when trust is established. So if a 6 trusts their coach and trusts that they're going to get results, they will stick to the program. The type of program that works best is something that's coach approved, predictable meal timing, a clear yes-no food list, and education-based programs. So education builds trust. If 6s know the why behind everything or the how behind everything, they trust it more because certainty lowers anxiety. And again, weight loss is stalled when we have those emotions show up that we can't process without going to the food source. A big risk for type 6s is second guessing themselves and hopping from plan to plan. Consistency is key for every type on the Enneagram. And the reframe that I want you to keep in mind for a type 6 is you don't need a new plan. You need to trust the one you're on. And if you don't trust the one you're on, reach out. I'm here. I'm here to help analyze what you're doing now so that we can put you on a whole food, nutritionally dense, successful meal plan for you. Type 7, the enthusiast. I was actually having a conversation with one of my best friends who's a type 7 yesterday, and he was talking about going down the YouTube rabbit hole. And that would typically be, understood that a 5 would go down the YouTube rabbit hole. However, he mentioned something that was really keen or curious to me. And he was speaking to his own curiosity of like, I wanted to know why certain cars have a higher clearance on this axle versus another car. And I was like, oh, okay, but aren't you looking for a job right now? Like, why would that rabbit hole on YouTube actually inspire you? And the thing I want to remember about myself, because sometimes the wing 7 shows up for me, is am I using the YouTube rabbit hole as a distraction from the emotions that I'm feeling? And that actually applies to our nutrition goals and mindset for type 7s as well. The best nutrition styles that work for the 7 are something that's flexible, variety friendly, and non restrictive. 7s rebel against deprivation. Like I said, the nutrition plans that work best are calorie cycling. We can touch on more of that in the future episodes if you have questions about it. Balanced plates between proteins, carbs, and fat. Planned indulgences. Like if you want to go out to a movie on a Friday night, that's your time to deviate from your plan because it's a scheduled indulgence. And then add before you restrict strategies. We don't want to restrict the behavior of a type 7. They're going to rebel against that. So what we want to add in is more fruits and vegetables as opposed to more complex carbs like potatoes and rice. Here's why it works though. They stay engaged without feeling trapped as a type 7. And the big risk here is when you have too much flexibility, that equals not having any structure at all. And 7s do thrive under structure. If you meal plan as a 7, you can get through your work week without too many distractions. Like, oh, what am I going to eat for lunch today? And then you start looking at all the menus of the restaurants around your neighborhood. And you're like, I just can't pick one. So too much flexibility equals no structure. And structure in your life helps you be free outside of work or outside of your meal plan. And the key reframe for type 7s is freedom works best inside of boundaries. What boundaries are you hesitating to set as a type 7 right now that are holding you back from getting to your weight loss and performance goals? Something I want you to consider. And then my own personality type, the type 8, the challenger, the nutrition style that works best for me is maybe something I can learn from this as well, is performance focused, abundance mindset. 8s don't respond well to restriction language. Do not try to control us. Do not try to control what we eat. If we are in an unhealthy mindset, type 8s will rebel against that. And what works best is protein heavy plans. I get it. I'm a jiu-jitsu athlete. I lift heavier weights. It's not just body weight. It is a progressive overload for me. If you recall from last week's episode, I need protein heavy plans to rebuild my muscles in between workouts. I also need to fuel for performance and that framework. A meal prep for dominance, not dieting. So if I fuel for my performance, I can dominate on the jiu-jitsu mat. Whereas if I'm restricting my fuel, I don't perform as intensely. Don't have enough fuel in my system to go above and beyond in intensity on the jiu-jitsu mat. And then finally, eating to support hard training is the focal point here. And here's why it works though. It aligns with strength and control without restriction or scarcity, right? I believe I can get to my weight loss goals while still performing at a high level on the mat, while still having all of my choices and my own self-control when it comes to nutrition. But the big risk for type 8s is ignoring hunger signals or recovery needs. I think the other night I trained at the fundamentals class coming back from injury, and I did not eat after my workout. I did have a protein shake, but it was a little bit late in the evening and I really wasn't hungry. And I was thinking of the salmon plate that I had prepped before class, and it came with potatoes and green beans. And I was just like, that feels really heavy right now. So I had a fasting period of time from, I don't know, maybe 3 o'clock on Wednesday through 11 a.m. on Thursday. And I needed to tune into those hunger signals, but also addressing my recovery needs a little bit better than that. And here's my key reframe that I need to keep in mind. Recovery is a form of power, strength, and control. And then finally, the peacemaker, the type 9, the best nutrition style for them is something with gentle consistency and low friction. 9s struggle with starting, not knowledge. They could know all that they need to know about protein, carbs, and fat percentages, but they still hesitate because they feel lethargic or they feel apathetic or they just don't feel the motivation to get started. What works best for them is habit-based changes, like getting up every day at 7 a.m. to give yourself enough time to do yoga and then eat before work. There's a plate methodology instead of tracking with an app or weighing your food. And then keeping or sticking to routine meals. Environmental design for a type 9 could actually be very constructive. Keeping those beautiful fruits and veggies visible so you go to those particular foods instead of what's in the cupboard and what's hidden, right? And here's why it works is because small wins build momentum for type 9s. And a risk that you may want to be aware of is passive overeating and avoidance. I don't want to overthink my meat. You may think to yourself, I don't want to overthink this, so I'm just not going to eat at all. And that's what I want you to be conscious of. And here's the reframe for type 9s before I let you go for today. Small action is still action. And here's the truth about nutrition. The best nutrition plan is the one that matches how you avoid stress, handle rules, and respond to accountability. Weight loss isn't about trying harder. It's about choosing strategies that don't fight your personality. If this episode helped you rethink dieting and your nutrition goals, share it with someone who's stuck blaming themselves instead of the plan. And remember, your personality isn't the problem, it's the solution. If you have any questions about today's episode or any other episode on the Enneagram and mental health, well-being, and your fitness lifestyle, please reach out, connect with me at riseup at fitlifechampions.com, and we'll schedule a complimentary consultation to talk about your fitness and nutrition goals. Until next week, wishing you health and happiness wherever you're at in the world. Talk to you soon.